Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Essie Jane and I'm a new reseller on Poshmark, eBay, Mercari, etc. I started reselling in February of 2022 and I started this channel in March to document my journey. So if you enjoy reselling YouTube content, please consider subscribing and liking this video if you enjoy this one. It would mean a lot to me. And today I have for you a 20 questions video. Actually 19, I think. I have 19 questions. And I am just going to answer in one place all the questions that I have received on this channel in the last few months. So I thought it would be fun to go back through and see if my answers have changed at all and just kind of put it all together. Obviously, I am not an expert. This whole channel is about me being a newbie at this, so this is just my personal experience and what I've found to be true. So take all my answers with a grain of salt. I would love to hear your answers to any of these in the comments as well if you have insight that maybe I don't already have. Let's learn from each other here. Question number 1. How do you decide to price your items? Is it purely based on comps? So the way I price currently is based on my profit goal for that item. So I will obviously check comps and make sure that it's reasonable to set the price that I do. I also send out automatic 15% offers to likers when somebody likes an item on my Poshmark closet. So I have to take into account that there's likely going to be at least 15% discount offered, and then leave room for people to make offers as well. So I do price on the higher side. I try to find items where I have the only one of that size and color especially, and then that gives you a little bit more leeway with pricing. If somebody's looking for that item specifically, they will be willing to pay a little bit more if you have the only one available. So that means you can price a little bit higher and leave more room for negotiation. If you have an item that's a little bit more saturated, I think you definitely need to check comps and price competitively with those. But even so, if your listing is really quality and you have really good photos, a good description, include measurements, and all the things that people want to see, I think you can price on the higher end of comps. So that's kind of how I do it. And then if an item is sitting for a while and it's getting likes but not really getting purchased, I might check and make sure that I'm still priced fairly and competitively, and I do send out bigger offers sometimes on those. Can you say why you switched business models from low cost of goods to high cost of goods? Great decision, but just wondering how you came to it. This was mostly because most of the sellers that I was following online here on YouTube and on Instagram had business models like that, and I enjoyed seeing those big flips. When you see somebody flipping something for $50, $100 more than they bought it for, that is really exciting. So where I live, I don't really have places locally where I can source higher end items, and so I do have to pay more for them. I have to invest, pay up, whatever you want to call it. I do need to source online or go to consignment stores or drive a little bit further to do retail arbitrage. So it just made the most sense for me to kind of switch. The bins is about an hour away from me, and I don't have the time to go for several hours at a time because I have a 1-year-old daughter. So I can't go spend a whole day at the bins, which is pretty much the best way to run a low cost of goods business model, I think. So that was just not practical for me, and paying more for items online and having a higher profit goal per item works best for me. What do you use for cross-listing? Is there an app? There is. It's a Chrome extension called Flyp, which I've talked about in almost every video, I think, because I love it so much. It's completely free and it is linked in the description below. How are you finding the stock photos so easily for every item? Is a style number on the tag. So some brands do have style numbers on the tags. That's always amazing and super helpful. If you find something new with tags, usually it'll have some information that'll help you find those stock photos. But something that I learned along the way was that you can actually reverse image search, and I've been doing that a lot. So at the very beginning, I thought I just had to type in all the keywords to try to find the item online, and it turns out with the Google app, you can just take a photo of the item or a screenshot and reverse image search it, and Google will pull up all the images that are similar to that item. So that's a much quicker, easier way to find stock photos. I would be super interested if you talked about your process and reasons for becoming an LLC and what you are doing business-wise. I started selling right around the same time as you, and I think it would be really helpful info. So to be honest, the main reason that I set up an LLC was because I wanted a business bank account and a business credit card. And you need to have an LLC to get those things. So that was my main reason. Once I get into doing my taxes for the first time, I think maybe I'll see some of the pros and cons to it a little bit more. But that was the main reason to do it. I used an online service that helped me set it up for free, so I just paid like state fee for getting, I think it was the like business identification number for taxes. So it wasn't super expensive, and now I have a separate bank account and a business credit card that I can use for my business and earn those points to use towards travel and things like that. As far as other things I'm doing business-wise, I'm just tracking everything. So obviously all of my inventory and sales are tracked in the spreadsheet that's also linked below. And then I also track any expenses I have, like this clothing rack behind me. I purchased at Target, so I kept the receipt and track that in my spreadsheet also. So yeah, I keep receipts, keep track of everything, and then once I go to do my taxes in the spring, hopefully I will have everything that I need, but I'll do an update then probably, since I haven't gotten to that yet. This is a good one. How much time on average do you spend on your business per day? So I think my answer to this was about 2 hours, and I think at this point it's more like 3+. And that depends on the day. Obviously, if it's a day like I vlogged last week where I'm in-person sourcing and I'm driving to do that, I'm going to several stores, it's much more of a whole day thing. But I would say on a typical day, I'll spend about an hour listing and sourcing online in the morning. And then if I have items to ship, typically, I have no more than like 5 items to ship a day, so that takes me 15 minutes or so. And besides that, I'll be checking in throughout the day. I'll be sending offers, replying to questions, things like that. And I would say a safe number is about 3 hours a day, just because I do enjoy it so much, so I do find myself sneaking back into online sourcing throughout the day and checking in on things. So probably 2 to 3 hours on an average day. What type of printer do you use for labels? This is also linked below. It is a Bluetooth printer, and I found it on Amazon. I did some research just to find the best deal, and it's worked really well for me so far. So check out that link in the description. If a customer is not satisfied and wants a return, how do we go about that? Has there ever been an incident where someone returns the item damaged? So Poshmark especially is amazing for returns. I really enjoy how they handle everything and they mediate every case. I've never had an issue that wasn't resolved in a way that I was really happy with. Just yesterday, I had a case open against me and a case that I had to open because I received an item and it had stains all over it that the seller didn't notice. And then I had a buyer receive an item where the zipper was broken. And in both cases, photos were submitted, we both got to say our side of the story, and Poshmark took care of making sure that everybody was taken care of. So Poshmark is really great. eBay's a little bit different. I think you need to be a little bit more careful and make sure to handle those on your own, because you do not want eBay to get involved, because that can kind of get marks against your account. Mercari, I have had to return 1 or 2 items, I think, and I've had a return also very similar to Poshmark in that process. And so far, I haven't had any items returned back to me damaged. What was the name of the podcast you were listening to? So this was in a day in the life video that I did a couple months ago, and I was listening to the Thrifter's Villa podcast, which is one of my favorite reseller podcasts. I've also recently started listening to the Thrifter Sisters podcast, and then Regina, Basic Posh Babe, she has a really fun podcast as well. So those are kind of the 3 that I listen to on a regular basis. If there are any other ones that I'm missing, please let me know, because I love podcasts. I like the idea of sourcing on Poshmark, but I always feel too guilty about buying things on there to flip. How do you feel about it? So I made a whole video about sourcing on Poshmark a couple videos ago, and I kind of talk about this a little bit and link to Issa Diaz's video where she covers this topic very thoroughly. But basically, I don't feel bad because there are sellers on there that are just cleaning out their closet, and they are more interested in selling things quickly than making the most that they could make on them. And if they are really interested in making the most that they can and taking the time to do that, they can reject offers or list items at a higher price that wouldn't be practical for me to pay to resell. So if somebody has something priced within the range that I can resell it and they accept my offer, then I think we're all happy. Thing I'm really curious about is using stock photos. My concern would be someone buying based on the stock photo and saying my item didn't look like the photo. How does that work? Ever been a problem? This hasn't been a problem for me. I do use stock photos on most of my items, and I also make sure to include lots of photographs of the actual item so that the customer can see what it looks like on a model and also see what the item they'll be receiving looks like. If there are ever any discrepancies, like colors showing up differently in my photos than the stock photo, then I'll be sure to include in the description which one is more accurate. So I've had a couple of like green dresses that are emerald green, and the way I photograph them, they always come out a little bit more blue-green, but the stock photo is very accurate to that emerald color, so I include in the description color is more like the stock photo than my product photos. So hopefully that helps a buyer decide if it is the item that they want, and I've never had any complaints about an item not being what somebody expected based on me using a stock photo. Where do you source online? I source on Poshmark, eBay, Mercari, ThredUp, The RealReal, pretty much anywhere you can buy items online, I am sourcing there. Sometimes I will also do online arbitrage on sites like Nordstrom Rack or Anthropologie if they're having a sale. So anywhere you can buy items online for a good deal, I'm there. Do you look up brands beforehand and have your eye out for them while in stores? Yes, for a while I had a list on my phone of brands because I didn't know a lot of brands. And now I kind of know which ones are my favorites that I'm looking for. If I come across something in a store that has a label that's intriguing to me or the style that is, I'll definitely look it up and see what it's all about. Another great thing to do is if you live near a Nordstrom or a Bloomingdale's or a Saks or something like that, one of those higher end department stores, is just to walk into the store, walk around and see what brands they have, what styles are currently in, and that is really helpful to kind of get a visual on what brands you should be looking for if you're going for this like higher cost of goods, higher average profit business model. I guess I didn't realize like I had this list of brands that I had just accumulated from other resellers and BOLO lists, and then when we were in New York over the summer, I went to Bloomingdale's and just walked around by myself for an hour to kind of see what was in there, and I was like, oh, this looks like my Poshmark closet and the Poshmark closet of everybody that I follow. Kind of get all of those higher end brands all in one place and you can see what's current. So that's super fun, and whenever I'm traveling to a city that has one of those stores, I like to pop in and just walk around and kind of be reminded of all of the brands that maybe I haven't been looking out for as much. Sometimes you can find a deal on clearance, but so far I don't know that I've ever purchased anything in one of those stores because even their clearance is a little bit pricey to be able to resell most of the time. I didn't know we were allowed to use stock photos when reselling. Can you give some info or tell me where to look for that info? So every brand and every platform is a little bit different. On eBay, I have gotten a couple of listings taken down because there are some brands that are very picky about that. I know like Chico's White House Black Market, that whole group of brands is very picky about using stock photos, especially on eBay. Depop, you're not supposed to use any stock photos, so I don't use any there. Poshmark has been pretty okay with it. I've been able to use stock photos from every brand, but I know there are definitely lists of brands out there to kind of avoid using their stock photos because they will look out for it, and on some platforms I know your account can even get suspended. So it's something to be careful of for sure, and just do your research about which stock photos you're using. Wondering if you would share your blogger favorite style resources. To be honest, I am not the best person to answer this question. I don't have a lot of places where I keep track of these things. It can be very overwhelming to see what those blogger favorite styles are, and usually if they're current blogger favorites, then they're a little bit harder to find or more expensive. So what I mainly do is I search what's been selling for those really trendy brands on Poshmark, so whether that's Zara or Free People or something like that. And then usually there will be other listings that have a bunch of blogger photos, and I will use those photos for my listing as well if I am able to find that item at a good price. So that's kind of what I do. I think Ashley at Recloth Collection and Allison at Thread Level Midnight both have videos on this topic, so I will try to put those in the comments too. I was wondering if you have a tip for avoiding fake Suzanne. I've seen that coat as well as some sweaters on Posh are turning out fake. That's scary. That is scary, and I have never sourced online any fake Suzanne items, but I have sourced a couple of fake dresses. One of them was self-portrait, and I knew pretty immediately when it arrived that it was fake. One, because I couldn't find any stock photos of that style, so it doesn't exist. Somebody had just sewn self-portrait tags into another dress, and the zipper was plastic, which just felt really out of place for me for an item that should cost $500 to $1,000. So I did a little bit more research and was very certain it was fake, and so that was an item that I purchased on Mercari. I submitted photos, Mercari approved the return, I got my money back and sent the item back to the seller. So if you do source something that turns out to be fake, just inspect it. Usually you can tell by the quality of zippers, buttons, fabrics, things like that. I do still avoid really high-end designer and luxury because there are so many fakes out there, and I am not experienced enough with those. Or at least I'm not experienced enough with authentic ones to be able to easily spot a fake, but it's something that I want to get better at in the future. How do you find out what has been selling on Poshmark across the app? So you can search what's been selling for specific brands. So Free People, for example, you can search Free People and then search sold, sort by either just shared or just in, and then a specific price range, whatever parameters you want to set on that. Or you can search by category. So I do this with shoes, with jackets, with dresses, etc. You just type dresses in the search bar, and then you can kind of filter down to the parameters that you want to see which ones have been selling recently. For someone who gets a lot of followers and item shares but not a lot of likes to their posts or sales, how would you recommend getting more people drawn into your items for sales? Honestly, you need to have quality items, and then you need to make sure that your listings are optimized for people to be able to make purchases quickly. So you want to capitalize on that impulse buy by including all the photos that somebody might need to see to make a purchase, as well as measurements and a description. That way they won't just share or like an item and save it for later. They'll be more tempted to go ahead and buy it right there on the spot because it has everything they need to know that it is an item they'll be happy with and that will fit them. Pricing definitely comes into play here as well. If you're not getting a lot of likes and purchases, it could be that your items are not priced competitively compared to similar items out there. This one is a little bit similar. It says, when can we new Poshers start expecting some success after becoming ambassadors, larger closets, or having the most followers? I think when I started getting more regular sales was when I started listing daily. So I did get Posh Ambassador 1 status pretty quickly after starting my business, but I don't think that really correlated to sales. I think it was mainly when I started listing daily. I was listing 3 to 5 items a day, and I still have a goal of doing that. And I notice I am getting a lot more consistent sales after I've been listing consistently for several weeks to a month. So I took off some time in June and July, which are very slow months anyway for reselling, and I was slow all the way through mid-September, even though I started listing regularly around August, mid-August. And then things started picking up again mid-September for me. And same thing when I got started. This was back in the end of February, I think, is when I started listing several items a day instead of dropping like 15 items in one day and then waiting a week to list another 10. I kind of spaced out my listings, and I was doing 3 to 5 every day, as consistently as I could, and that's when I started seeing more success. All right, so that was 19 questions with a new reseller. Hopefully that was helpful to you. If you have any answers to those questions that you want to share, please do so. That would be amazing. Put them in a comment and we can kind of assemble all kinds of resources here. If you haven't already subscribed and liked this video, you can do that on your way to the description, where I will have links to some of the things I mentioned. Thank you again for watching. Have a great weekend, and I will see you back here soon.